Oh, we got George calling in.
Oh, snap. George, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing just fine. How about you?
I'm all right. This is Joe Hector. He's the host of the show.
George, how's it going, buddy?
I'm doing well, Joe. How about yourself today?
Hey, it's great to talk to you, and it's great to have you on the podcast. It's an honor.
I appreciate that a lot, and I'm happy to be here and chatting with you guys.
Awesome, man. Now, Fred was telling me he did a job with you, and you guys were in New Jersey. That's my home state, and I don't think the fishing gets enough credit there, especially from people here in South Florida. But I heard you guys killed it with the striped bass.
No doubt about it. And what you initially said, that the fishing in New Jersey doesn't seem to garnish as much respect as, say, our fishing out of Florida. Now, I'm a native Floridian, South Floridian to be exact, and I could tell you from all the trips that I've done throughout the years to New Jersey, fishing trips, they have sensational fisheries,
Yep.
and the people that fish, I mean, I compare them to those in South Florida. They have the same passion, the same aggressiveness, the same, we need to be on that water catching these fish. It's just a remarkable fishing state and a lot of quality fishing.
Yeah, and I tell people, I'm like, listen, even though New Jersey's like really seasonal, the fishing there in those seasons are phenomenal. Like with the bunker run, and you got thousands and thousands of bunker, and you're snagging them, and then you're putting them out as baits. I mean, there's so many things to do. You got the fluke, you got flounder, you got bluefish. I mean, you could go out to the canyons and catch bluefin tuna. I mean, I'm telling you, man, it's a lot of people I tell this to in South Florida. They're just like, what? Pollywogs? Huh?
and all those fish that you mentioned, we caught them out of Jersey for my television series and also for any Saltwater Sportsman articles that I've written before. But we've done it all there, from the canyon fishing. We've caught Makos, bluefins, yellowfins, white marlin. Then you come back in for your striped bass and your flukin. It's just a really remarkable and diverse fishery up there.
What was your biggest Mako? Because that's big down there.
Biggest Mako we caught there, if memory serves me right, I want to say it was like around 240-ish or 250, somewhere in that zone is what we caught. And we caught, I think, 2 or 3 of them that evening.
That is awesome, man. I mean, I tell a lot of people here, I'm like, listen, man, there is nothing like Mako sharks. Like, they got this like bluish purplish color, black eyes. They're great eating. I mean, phenomenal. Just an awesome fish.
Oh, no doubt about it. It really is. And it's so funny because, I'm sitting here promoting New Jersey.
I know.
And I was born down here, and I never even lived in New Jersey. I just fish up there. We do our seminar series up there. So I don't want somebody to think, well, here's George. He must be from Jersey. I'm just really cheering on the fisheries there. And going back to the Mako shark, what's so funny is north of the Mason-Dixon line, people love sharks like we do marlin south of the Mason-Dixon line. Now, in my own personal opinion, fishing out here and in the Bahamas, it would have to be really an incredibly slow day for me to decide, well, let's try to catch a shark. Unless, of course, it's a Mako shark. That's a different story. But,
right.
I'm not even so sure. I'd rather drop down and pull on a shark. I'd rather put the boat in a trailer and wash it. Save the day with a shark.
That's awesome. Well, George, now speaking of that, let's go back to the Florida thing and talk about, what got you started with, I mean, how did you even get started with what you're doing today? I mean, because it's phenomenal. It's awesome.
It's my dad. My dad was a dentist in Bay Harbor Islands, the Miami Beach area, and he loved fishing with a passion. And ever since I was a little kid, I remember he would take me on the seawall near Biscayne Bay, and with this little plastic rod and reel, I'd catch these grunts that might have been a quarter of a pound, if that. He's a little snapper. And then from that point on, I was like hooked. I had to do that. And, and we grew up fishing in North Biscayne Bay for sea trout and snook, tarpon. And then my drag, or magnetic force, or whatever you want to call it, started pulling me offshore, where the bay fishing was fun, but I wanted that big open ocean. I wanted the monsters that were in that ocean, and that's what drove me to head offshore and become an offshore person. But long and short of it, my father was the one who got me into it, and he fished a lot on the weekends, and took me a lot, and I didn't want to do any other sport growing up. You know, I had to fish, whether it was a local canal for bass or Biscayne Bay. That was my whole passion, and that's what I had to do, stick with the fishing.
Right.
Sounds fun to me. So George, so I was telling Joe before you called in about New Jersey and how you had some fans at the restaurant that night. Do you remember those two ladies that called you over while we were eating dinner?
Yes, I do.
And I was just telling him, like, because the younger fishermen, especially for us, like we fish off of kayaks, as you know, and like it attracts like a lot of younger people, you know, and so they're new to fishing and they didn't really even grow up watching television like on Saturday morning, so they don't know you. So like I was explaining to him like how like deeply rooted you are in like television, and even in different states and really all over the world, people you know, they comment on your Facebook stuff, and you've had fans for years. Do you have any like really funny like sort of fan stories? Like, do people pull you, you know, aside at restaurants all the time, or is that just something that happens randomly, not regularly?
No, it happens, you know, fairly often. And you'll be in a restaurant, or you'll be in an airport, or you'll be in some place where you wouldn't even expect it, and somebody will come up, "Hey, I watch your show all the time," and then you'll chat with them about fishing and that, and it's sort of funny that you get recognized. I can understand along a coastal destination where saltwater fishing is a big sport getting recognized, but you could be flying and changing planes in, say, Atlanta, or changing planes in Dallas or something, and somebody in the airport will come up and say they watched the show and talk to you about it. So it's a little bit on the bizarre side. Yeah. The reach and where these people come from that would recognize you.
Yeah. That's hilarious, man. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, I mean, what was your big break? Like, how did it start? Like, did anything happen, or was it just you met somebody? I mean, how did it all kind of get to where you are today?
Yeah. How it happened, it was Mako boats. You know, growing up, my dad was always friends with Bob Hughes from Bob Hughes Boat and Ski Shop. And when my dad saw that I had an offshore passion, and I kept sneaking out from Biscayne Bay with our little 16-footer, he figured one day I'm going to get killed. So he wanted to get a different boat, and he wanted to get an Aqua Sport, which is what Bob Hughes boat dealership sold. And I said, I don't want that. I want Mako. I was looking at the Saltwater Sportsman magazine ads and all, and said, this looks like a cool boat. My dad didn't want to do it. I finally talked him in to looking at a Mako. He said, this is not a bad boat. And so he bought it. And then a few years later, I started fishing the Mako owner tournaments, and it had done rather well. And the same marketing person at Mako who put on the owner tournaments used to run an outdoor riders trip where he would invite 10 to 12 of the top outdoor riders in the country, take them on a week-long fishing expedition aboard Mako boats, and everybody had an article to write. And I met Barry Gibson and Rip Cunningham from Saltwater Sportsman in 1981 in the Bahamas. I was asked to take my boat and help fish some of these riders. It was my senior year of college. And about a year, maybe 2 years after that, they asked me to write a piece for Saltwater. And then they flew me up to Boston, wanted to know if I wanted to come to work as a staff editor with them. And, you know, I've been with them since 1983. So had my father bought an Aqua Sport instead of a Mako, we wouldn't be talking together right now.
That's great. I actually had a Mako when I was in high school in New Jersey. I had a 21 Mako, and we would go out for stripers and all that. Great boat. Awesome. So.
No doubt. And the funny twist to that story is, and I had graduated University of Miami with a major in broadcast journalism, and the only reason I was even in that field or taking those subjects is because I had no idea what I wanted to be, and I figured that was the easiest amount of courses to take where I would still have a lot of free fishing time.
Right.
And if somebody told me my senior year of college that I would be doing what I'm doing now, I would look at them and call them a bold-faced liar. I went there because of the easiest courses to take, and it gave me more fishing time, and somehow it all bit me in the rear end, and I ended up doing exactly what I graduated with,
cool.
Awesome.
Which is bizarre.
That's awesome, man. I mean, that's a cool story. I mean, what, so like you get it. So now you're into it. You're doing your shows. What was some of your favorite experiences, you know, going out on these trips and going fishing for a living now? Like what was What was some of the top ones that you could think of?
Oh man, there's so many really good ones over the years.
Aside from riding on the planes with me and stuff, you know.
Oh God,
yeah,
I feel bad for you, man. You're stuck with Freddie.
Yeah, other than hanging out with me. Some of the less cooler ones that are still fun.
I just put the headsets on and I listen to my music.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
So true.
Well, there's a lot of good ones. I mean, the first time that you're fishing these foreign destinations like Panama or Costa Rica, it's pretty wild. Back before the crazy people took over Venezuela, we used to go there. I've been there probably about 10 times in the fall for that white marlin run, which is incredible. You could go up there and catch 15, 20 white marlin a day. They're up there just corralling sardines. It just some of the things that I was fortunate enough to see. And, of course, some of the great catches, my 143-pound Wahoo caught in San Salvador, Bahamas.
That thing is ridiculous.
George, that's my favorite fish.
Pounds.
That is unbelievable.
I'll show you the photo.
Oh, my God.
It's so sick.
What were you? Wait, what were you using for that?
We were intentionally fishing for Wahoo, and it ate a 2-pound trolling lure. And we had caught, I think, 5 or 7 that day, and we were coming off the top of this underwater mountain because that's where they hang around. You troll up on the mountain and come off it. And fortunately, we were coming off when the fish hit, and he really took a ton of line off an 80 International pin, and we caught the fish. And I never saw the size of it until I heard somebody screaming up the top, "Oh my God, and I couldn't even repeat the words they said. Right. I still didn't see it. And I said, there must be a big fish. So they gaffed it. They opened up the tuna door, brought it in. And when I saw how just unreal the size of that fish was, it was awe-inspiring. But had we caught the fish trolling up to the mountain, chances are it would have been eaten by the sharks because they have these sharks that are really bad there. And when you hook them trolling up, they'll get you. But we were lucky enough trolling off to drag the fish away, and the sharks left them alone.
That's amazing, George. I mean, in our last summer tournament, we actually broke a record with one of our biggest wahoos ever caught. It was basically a 72-pounder.
Wow.
And that fish looked fake. I mean, when he brought it in, it was so unreal that it was just odd. So I mean, I can't even imagine they open that door and you see this.
Double the size of
that. I mean, that is ridiculous.
George, what?
All I remember is like what you just said, fake.
Yeah.
When I saw the head coming in and they're sliding it, then I saw the girth, and it reminded me of two things. I remember it went through my mind that, man, this looks like some weird creation that Walt Disney contrived. That was one of them. And the other one, it's so huge, it looks like a pool float, like one of those kiddie pool floats you jump on a big giant fish and run in a pool with.
Well, not only that, I'm sure this happened to your fish too, but every big wahoo I've ever caught or ever seen caught, they die really quick. I guess it's because they're just fully pelagic and they just suffocate to death, and then when you get them in, they're pretty much dead. But I think that brings also the element of kind of the fakeness to them because they're just laying there and you're just in awe of something that's just gigantic. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It is. I think what happens is they expend so much energy in that initial first blazing long run.
Yeah.
And then they'll do a second but shorter run, and then they have a third or fourth left, smaller and smaller, based on the type of tackle you fight them on. And I think then that's it. They're shot. And, but I tell you, I fought that one for had it been over a half hour, if not 45 minutes. And I wish he died a lot sooner, to be honest.
Jeez, that's
George,
unbelievable.
what year was that? Because wasn't the world record 110 pounds forever? It was a long time, and now it's 180 something, right?
No, the world record, I remember when I caught mine, I think it was 5 pounds shy of the record in, I thought, the 80-pound category, which is what I had. There was a larger fish that was the all-tackle record, and then that got bumped, I think, a year after I caught mine, and that was that 180-some pounder, I think, caught in Cabo or somewhere over in that part of the world.
That's so big, 180 pounds.
But I had that big wahoo mounted, and it's hanging out on the wall by my swimming pool. So every great once in a while, I'm floating around in the pool. having a Heineken. I'll pay homage to the big Wahoo.
That's
awesome. On my wall and think back about that.
I actually got a Wahoo tattooed on my arm, and it's funny because a Wahoo is actually what kind of springboarded my tournament series, because I caught a monster 65-pound Wahoo on the kayak here in Pompano, and that fish is what kind of springboarded what I do today. So I just love that fish. Wow. Amazing.
It was 65 pounds after Photoshop, but it was probably more like 32 pounds before Photoshop.
Right. Okay.
And then plus you're catching these off a kayak, right?
Yeah, we're catching them off a kayak. And like I said, our last summer tournament, we had a 71.9 pounder, and then we had a 59 pounder
I can't
caught.
imagine that.
It's amazing.
That's crazy. Those kind of catches off a kayak. A fish like that aboard a 54-foot sport fishing boat's amazing. I can only imagine when you scale it down, you do it in a kayak.
It's nuts. I was shocked. I mean, I'm on the beach waiting for these guys to come in, and then I'm getting updates on the radio, and I get a crackle on the radio, and it's one of our guys, Doug, and he's like, Joe, all right, I'm going to tell you two things. One, this guy caught a Wahoo. Two, it's the biggest Wahoo I've ever seen. And you still don't, it still doesn't compute. I'm thinking 50-pounder, awesome. When he brought that thing in, he had a crowd around him on the beach.
He had help.
He couldn't carry the fish alone.
He had help.
He had help bringing it up to the beach.
Wow.
I mean, it was huge.
Imagine, George. So there's no dock. You pull up to the beach, and then there's a 30-yard walk to the stage, and everybody who's just hanging out at the beach, they're all it
waiting.
Looked like Rocky was coming up the beach running with all these people following him, because the thing was just a monster. It was pretty cool.
That is a amazing sight.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And what's another awesome story that you got?
Oh my goodness. There's so many. To pick one, I remember one year, it was 1984. It was October, and the reason I remember that, I just got a 25-foot Mako, and that was the first time that we were fishing in it. We're out of Key West, and we get hooked this big yellowfin. And I was with two friends. They were with me, and we're fighting the yellowfin, which we eventually got. The yellowfin. It was 110 pounds, but as we were fighting the fish, we had it on 50-pound tackle. Yellowfin sounds, and it's not a short battle. It takes some time, and my buddy's fighting the chair, and we're drifting. And all of a sudden, we see this humongous dark shadow moving underneath the water surface, where my buddy and I, who the ones that weren't fighting the fish, saw it at the same exact time, and we were so startled that we didn't even talk to each other, that what we were looking at. And then my buddy fighting the fish saw it. It was a great white shark, and then we finally said, "Oh my God, look at that great white!" It was huge, and then it sounded. I said, "There's the end of that tuna. That tuna's toast." But we got the tuna and never saw the shark. But 4 days later, they were holding a big tournament in Bimini, and I was over here in the States, and I saw or heard people saying that a great white shark was swimming by the tournament boats off of Bimini. So I've got to assume it's probably the same white shark that we saw off of Key West. 4 days later, it was up harassing the Marlin tournament boats that were fishing out of Bimini. But this thing was so huge, and we were in a 25 Mako at the time, and you never felt so small on a boat until you saw that size of that fish that was in the water.
Jeez, they just spotted a great white in Miami this week, I think, right? Or maybe it was the Keys, but it was a big one. It was a big white shark.
Dude, I mean, he's in a 25-foot Mako. Those sharks are monsters. Yeah.
So crazy.
My God, man, that is unbelievable. And you got the fish too. That's even more crazy.
Yeah,
because he was there.
When we saw the white shark dive deep in a vicinity where the tuna was, he was going for that tuna. We were just expecting that line to speed up, and then boom, it would have been cut. But no, for whatever reason, he didn't mess with it or didn't know it was there or whatever, and we got that fish in. So that was crazy. And I'll tell you another funny one, or more than humorous. This past Monday, I did some fun fishing with a couple of friends of mine. No cameras. We took the boat out of Haulover Inlet, and we went out, found these big weed patches in 1,100 feet of water. We started drifting live baits, cut some small fish, and released them. Some school dolphin came around, decent-sized ones. We boated them. And my buddy Carl hooks, and we land a 45-pound bull dolphin.
Oh, awesome.
Now, the dolphin's stomach is just like huge. So we weighed him up, and then we pulled up to the boat ramp, and we decided to clean the fish at the Hall Over Park cleaning table. We cut open his stomach, and here is a decomposing school dolphin that looked to be probably in about that 4-pound class that this fish had eaten. And
sorry, little buddy, I'm a little hungry.
Yeah, it's not unusual that these big, these dolphins, they're cannibals. They eat their own, and anything that's food, they're going to eat. But I was looking at this big dolphin, and we're just wondering, how could that fish open his mouth that wide to down this anywhere 3 to 4 pound school dolphin whole?
Oh my God.
It just goes to show you they're just eating machines. And I know people, some people feel sorry, oh, you're hurting those fish and this and that, but hey, they're out there, they're eating their young and the whole bit. It's sort of like, in human terms, that'd be like Jeffrey Dahmer, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they're kind of a crazy fish. I mean,
I figured the next schoolie I catch, I'm going to put him on a circle hook and
hey, you never know, man.
Hope for the best.
Hey, you might get a big wahoo on that.
And if you don't get a huge bull dolphin, that's about a prime of bait as you could get for a blue marlin, which they stock those marlin. The marlin stock dolphin. They eat them, so it always pays to stick a schoolie out there way back behind the spread while you bail school fish. And if there's a blue around, he might decide to eat it.
Now, George, do you think a lot of blue marlin come in here to South Florida? Do you think there's a good amount of them?
I would. Well, you got to understand, it's an apex predator, so you don't have the vast numbers of them as you would, say, kings or sailfish and all, because it's a bigger predator fish. And but yes, I do. I believe more marlin or blue marlin come through our area here than most people think. And I think so many people, they're live baiting or they're trolling close to shore. If a bunch of boats had gone out and they wanted to fish for marlin specifically, get out to some of these deep ledges and start pulling big baits, big lures, and just concentrate it on blue marlin, I think you'll see a lot more marlin raised and caught off this area. I mean, they have to squeeze through Bimini and South Florida on their northern migration. So it's just that people here are fishing for so many other things with their style. They're not necessarily geared up for marlin, and the blue marlin that get caught around here are caught incidentally. Some guy's dragging a small lure for dolphin or a ballou, and a marlin eats it, or one guy gets lucky with a live bait off a kite and catches it. And I've caught a blue marlin out here live baiting for sailfish a number of years back, ate a mullet on a 20-pound spin off a flat line. We chased him down and got him.
Nice.
Jesus.
We should go shoot for those tomorrow, George.
Yeah.
That's
that'd
be like a knockout punch. That's what you'd be looking for. But, when the dolphin are coming through, there's marlin in there. And you're coming on a good time for them, springtime into early summer. Those fish are moving.
Yeah, I hear, a lot of people talk about it, and they say, that you got a good shot, at certain times a year of getting a big blue marlin that'll come through here. And they say that with yellowfin tuna, too.
Well, it goes back to what I always say. Like, we have a buddy named Doug, and we love him to death. He's the best. He's pretty much taught me all, everything that I don't know. I know very little.
You got that? What was that?
I know very little. I know very little about fishing, but Doug taught me all of it. But he's always preaching live bait, and I'm like, Doug, the reason you probably don't catch anything on artificials is because you never use artificials.
It's true.
It reminds me of those giant those Mojo lures that we were using in New Jersey when, we don't fish with those big things down here, but I'm sure the fish here would eat those Mojos. But we're never gonna find out if we don't try it out. The temptation to just go out and catch fish with live bait is there because we all know it works. But what if that thing would just destroy them like it does those striped bass up there? That thing
you never know.
I mean, it's like a 36-ounce jig with a big grub tail on it and a skirt. It's a beast, and they double them up. They put two in line 36 inches above each.
You're talking about for the striper.
For the striper, yeah. But dude, everything would eat that. Am I right, George? Don't you think the other fish would eat that?
I think if you just cut it down to one big single and you troll it, I think you could get grouper on them without a doubt on the reefs, the big black groupers, and I think Wahoo would probably bust that up too. And it's just interesting that they have a lure that works on striped bass, but yet very few people actually try that in an offshore situation down here. People just get so tied into certain techniques that they're afraid to break it and try something different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Kinda
I mean, I don't know. You were in the poppers for a minute there, and
George, tell him what lure that I beg for you to catch fish on every time.
Why are you obsessed with poppers, man?
Because it's amazing, dude.
We brought this Williamson Popper Pro, the Popper Pro 130, up to Jersey for that show, and that's one of my go-to Dolphin lures. I put it on a 20-pound test spin, and I throw that chugger out. And the
Amazing.
audible noise and sound of it just attracts dolphin like crazy. And, you know, anything that would eat a popper would jump on us. So we were trying to catch stripers up there on Jersey. We caught them on soft plastics. We caught them on the troll. And I was trying to get one on topwater. And Freddie's right there at that camera. He goes, I want to get the hit. And it just, whatever reason, we weren't getting the opportunities to get them on this plug. So I threw out again, and I'm reeling this in. And Freddie just had the camera following the plug. And sure enough, I go, there's a bass behind it. I see a shadow. And Fred has this
amazing shot
on camera. It comes alongside the boat, and I ran out of reel state in working that plug, and the plug stopped, and this bass just arcs on the plug, knocks it out of the water into the air.
It's the coolest shot. It's the best footage we got the whole trip.
You see the bass sit there for like a moment, and it swims off, and Fred got that all on camera.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was like the coolest shot.
That's pretty neat.
That thing was
and it
hungry. Oh.
So George, what advice?
Also,
what advice would you give to like a lot of? I'm noticing a lot of these young kayakers coming up, a lot of these young fishermen coming up, and you know what? Someone that's been in the business for all these years. I mean, what advice would you give some of those young kids coming up that maybe want to do something like this for a living?
Well, it's and I tell this. I get that question asked of me a lot by a lot of young kids, and I'm going to give them the old-fashioned response, which they don't really like to hear, but I'm being truthful. They think there's this magic bit of advice that I could give them, and you got to understand that what I do, or what maybe a lot of other people are doing, it's almost a rarity to, and especially in a small field like the fishing field, to be successful at what you do.
Sure.
And it's a lot of hard work. It knows no time boundaries or anything like that. And, you know, it's not one set thing that you make a living on, but rather 3 or 4 different things that you do that bring it together. Now, that being said, what I give advice to the young kids, I tell them, my bit of advice to you is to go out and get an education. Finish up whatever you want to do in school, get a college degree or get a degree. It's something in the trades. Make sure that you get schooled in a profession or a very good job. Then if you go out in the workforce and you're doing well professionally or with your trade and you're making decent money, you will always be able to afford to participate in our sport at a very good level with decent equipment. And if you want to replace boats or replace reels or electronics, you could be able to do that. And the value there is that you have another profession that you earn the money from, so you could spend it and enjoy it as a sport. Right. I see so many people that want to get involved in our sport as a work, that after a while they get burned out because they figure, oh my God, I thought this would be fun if they want to be a guide. And all of a sudden they have a monthly payments to make, and it's blowing 30 knots or 25 knots, and they have to force themselves to go out there and fish. I've seen so many people get burned out on the sport they love once they figure they need to make a living on it somehow. So I tell people, get a degree in something, learn a trade, make some good money, and enjoy fishing as a sport. This way you'll never, ever tire of it, and you always have the means to participate. So, you know, I know they want to hear a magical answer, but that's my sound advice.
No, hey, I appreciate that. It's definitely real, and that's
why Joe doesn't get to fish anymore.
Yeah, that's why I don't fish anymore.
He turned kayak fishing into a business, and he hasn't been out in over a year. So.
I'm burnt out.
Yeah. Well, they also, you know, a lot of guys, they don't see a lot of, especially, you know, and I'm guilty of it. I went to film. I'm in film school right now.
Yeah.
Because I want to produce content that is fishing, right? And that's what I want to do. And you know, George and I have talked about that. But what a lot of people don't see is the hours and hours George's wife is scheduling stuff in another state, or they don't see what Joe's wife is scheduling, or they don't see these hours upon hours of meetings with these companies who you're basically relying on to pay for these things
to survive.
They see you go fishing for 30 minutes on Saturday morning and they think that's all there is to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's really like it's like a double job. It's like 2 40-hour-a-week jobs to get that 30-minute show.
Exactly.
Even that 30-minute show is, that's 4 days of work for a 30-minute show. So they don't see that part, and I think it is good to be realistic with them and kind of like educate them on the fact that it is not just going out and fishing with someone holding a camera.
Exactly.
It is not. I mean, I try to we try to make a pilot for a kayak fishing show, and we had 2 weeks we couldn't get the footage that we needed, and it still hasn't happened. So it's like it's very difficult to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well.
I know. There's just that illusion that I guess we land where they think, all right, here we go. Let's go out in the boat. Okay, we fished for a half hour. We got 5 fish. Great. Let's put the boat in the trailer. Well, we got a half-hour show now.
Yeah, we catch a cobia, Mako.
Well, like when we went to Texas, when we went to Galveston, and the first day it was blowing really hard, and we just kind of scrapped that day. And then they, they called and they were like, "Hey, we're catching fish," and we had to be on the ready. So they came and picked us up. And we went out there, and we didn't catch anything that day. Even though, for that 30-minute segment of the day, they caught some fish.
Sure.
We didn't catch anything else that day.
There's a lot that goes into it. I mean, even with my tournaments, weather, all that stuff. It's just, it's got to align, in a way for it to kind of turn out,
Hard work
perfect.
Hard work and opportunity meet, and that's what it takes. But you got to put in the work.
Yeah. Yeah, George.
Yeah, and yep, yes, you do. And you got to catch a break with the weather too. You can never beat Mother Nature.
Exactly.
You also have to catch fish, which I don't do. So
and finally, catch fish.
It's going to be difficult for me because I don't catch fish.
Sorry, Fred.
I know. That's the worst part. So George, before we let you go, I know you're probably busy. What do you think about Joe's UFO talk and the UFO? Like he thinks that he sees UFOs.
Well, let me. All right, whoa. George, let me explain this to you. Freddie's not saying this the right way. Real quick, because we do got to go. So, okay. Years ago, I was looking up in South Jersey, and I noticed this object. It was circular, and it was like I don't know if you're a fan of the old Star Trek, but it was kind of like
Star Trek.
Yeah, and it was cloaked, like it was literally like a Klingon ship. Like you could see the stars through it, but you saw as it was moving the wave, like it was cloaked.
It was like a
then recently
one of those clear shower curtains.
Yes, and then recently, I don't sleep well, so I'm always up around 4 a.m. and I walked outside and. About to go in my truck, and I look up again, and I see another one of these strange ship-like things that's cloaked, and you could see actually the light from the moon kind of shining on it. And I don't know. I just think there's something going on. I mean, what do you think, George?
Well, the question I have for you. So you've seen this
twice.
Same thing apparently twice now, right?
Correct.
So I guess my question to you on both of those occasions when you saw this thing,
what were you smoking?
How many Papa's Pilar rum drinks did you have before you looked up in the sky?
Oh my God!
It's funny, George, because Papa's Pilar sponsors the kayak fishing tournament and also is George's sponsor.
Oh, pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, little plug for Papa.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you drink enough of that stuff, you'll be seeing flying saucers.
Oh, that's true, man. That's true.
He does.
Hey, do you on your trips, real quick?
I don't know.
Do you have you ever seen a Bigfoot Yeti? I gotta ask.
No, see, in our part of the world, it's a skunk ape. See, everybody gets that all confused. It down in South Florida, it's a skunk ape. See, you're from Jersey, so you're probably going to call it a Yeti or whatever the heck it's. No, a Yeti's up in the tundra or snow country. South Florida is growing up. It's always been a skunk ape. Every now and then, you'll hear people seeing one run across US 27. I remember growing up, they used to write about the Miami Herald. And you would hear, like, every 4th or 5th year, somebody would see a skunk ape, but then we haven't heard in our area about a skunk ape in, like, 30 years. I guess the area got so populated, they don't like crowds, so they moved north or something. But it's a skunk ape is what we have down here.
And did you ever have a skunk ape experience?
Yeah, on the news.
No, I honestly tell you, I've never had a skunk ape experience.
Okay. But you have heard of them. That's cool. Jay will love that. Hearing that.
Oh, 100%. That's an institution in South Florida. You Google skunk ape, and you'll see all kinds of stuff and apparent sightings and the whole bit. This, back in the day, this was skunk ape country.
Alleged sightings.
And we have to end it there because that is beautiful.
Allegedly.
All right, George. Well, listen, man, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. It was an honor, and it was a joy talking to you, and I hope we can have you, on some more in the future, and I definitely hope I can get you maybe one day to one of our tournaments, and you can come check it out and just hang out with us, maybe on a help boat or something. It'd be great.
Yeah, I'll drop the green flag and start all the kayaks, get them off the start line.
There we go, man. It would be awesome. It'd be an honor for you to come and check us out.
I'll keep you on
wonderful.
the schedule.
Fun talking to you, and I hope we could do this again.
All right, thanks, George. I appreciate it, man.
All right, Mr. Poveromo. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
You guys take care and keep an eye out for the UFOs. Don't let them capture you.
Oh, you know it, man.
He's just trying to get probed is all.
It's going to happen. I'm afraid like the third time is going to be the bad time. It's been 2.
All right, George.
All right, see you, bud.
Talk to you, buddy.
Have a good weekend.
All right, see ya. Happy Easter.